So I am so excited to have Amy Mihaly here of the Be Well Clinic, as well as you're one of my wonderful instructors for my GAPS practitioner training. So thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to reconnect and talk recently. We connected at the Listen A Price conference and been having some great conversations. So thank you for appearing on here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited. It's been fun to talk to you a lot more
Yeah.
recently, so that's been fun.
Well, I
Yeah.
would love to just kind of put you in context a little bit. Everyone who
Mhm.
gets into GAPS, the GAPS world seems to have their own story, their own long
Yeah.
winding journey to get there, right? So I would love for people just to get to know you a little bit with your own
Yeah.
story and how you got into GAPS.
Definitely. Yeah, I always tell people I've been a gapster since birth. I really have, I was told I was colicky even from, a few days old. And so I always had gut issues, obviously. And as I kind of look at like how things progress in my life and different stressors and having low nutritional absorption the whole time, I'm like, oh yeah, it makes sense how I got to where I am, but I can start back a little bit. So yeah, so I'm oldest of a lot of kids, which has benefits and disadvantages. What I've found is that people who are the oldest child tend to get the bigger toxic load from their moms, which I definitely did. I have ma many more toxic symptoms than most of my siblings do. And also more nutrition, right? So my mom wasn't depleted yet, as she had more kids. Some of them are more depleted. And then we started living on a little hobby farm and drinking raw milk. So some of my siblings are actually way healthier than I with very little toxins and a lot of nutrition. But I'm glad for them. I'm not jealous. So, yeah, so I was born, and my mom had to go back to work pretty quickly, so I probably got maybe 6 weeks of breastfeeding. My gut, I was very colicky apparently the whole time. I later found out, oh yeah, I have a milk intolerance. So I'm sure that was a huge part of it, which GAPS has healed. But that was for a huge part of my life, and I didn't know until 19 years old that milk was a problem. Um, so I had just different increasing symptoms, but always had sinus infections, always had just some sensory issues. I remember thinking, pain is beauty, right? We hear that statement. And anytime I put my hair up in a ponytail, I'd always get a headache. And I just thought, everyone else has a headache. Need to not be grumpy because no one else is grumpy. And I never even thought to ask or tell people, that it hurts to put my hair up and that I don't like that. And some sensory issues and like clothing and touch that actually got worse as time went on. Had typical vaccines, but I'm older, so I didn't have as many as some kids are getting now, which I'm thankful for. But did have some reactions that I now can recognize later on um, that my body had to handle as I detoxed things. Let's see, where am I at? And then by the time I was 11, that's kind of where my story really picks up in earnest, is by the time I was 11, I was so depleted, in a lot of pain. I don't actually remember when my pain started. It was so early. So either a sinus headache constantly. I was on antibiotics probably 2 or 3 times a year. And my doctor was pretty conservative. He would like check every time and make sure I actually had a sinus infection before he prescribed it. So I'm thankful could have gotten a lot more with a different provider, but still probably had it at least twice a year for most of my, 8 years to 18 probably. Then I had chronic low back pain, which I think was a few different things. But I started going to a chiropractor, and I'm really, really thankful. One of the things to know about me is that part of my journey after my physical body started healing is that I started doing emotional work that was really healing. And I'll talk about that more later. But one of the first instances was with this chiropractor. And there were just some questions he asked about my tension and asked my mom about things that happened in utero. And she shared some things that had happened during that for me to know, I felt a release in my body. And I went, ah, that's something that I obviously had experienced and understood, but didn't understand. And when I understood the full picture as an 11-year-old, I was actually able to release some tension. And I remember leaving that appointment feeling different than I had felt before, which was really great. Did some chiropractic work. I also, the thing I think had my mom go is that I had what's called suicidal idealization, which is I was talking about death, talking about wanting to die, not with an active plan, which is a different type of suicidal name, but just that everything hurt all the time and I didn't have good neurotransmitters and serotonin and dopamine, I'm sure, were super low. I could have had an ADHD diagnosis, I'm sure, potentially even a mild autism diagnosis, especially nowadays, and just like how my brain was not focusing, but my mom homeschooled us, and we were able to just manage. Most of my siblings and my dad have ADHD, whether they're diagnosed or not, and so we just kind of function well. There's actually a lot of good coping mechanisms. And I'm really thankful, actually, that I was not put on medication and that I just was given an environment where I could learn and be pushed to figure out ways to be able to be functional and grow even before I started being able to heal my body and my brain. So 11, 12, that was a big turning point in multiple different areas, but that one, that appointment and seeing that chiropractor was really, really huge. And then I started figuring out food when I was about 18. So I was off and on, just pretty much depressed all the time. Some anxiety that was actually not as big a deal. Some anticipatory, I'm gonna play a soccer game later today, kind of stuff, but it would resolve. IBS became pretty present in my life. I had to leave my 16th birthday dinner with my dad because I had chicken Alfredo, and then we went to shopping, and I was so uncomfortable. I just asked him to take me home, and so just like it was very interruptive in my life. I actually had a stool incontinence during a high school event. So just it was not very often, but it was very disruptive at times. That I had that. Um, 18, I went to another country. I lived in Guatemala for 4 months, which was really cool, and did not eat gluten or dairy for 4 months. And while I had migraines still, which is also a huge symptom for me, I started doing less. I started having less migraines. Um, and I came back. All I wanted was a glass of milk when I got home. I drank it. My stomach was upset, and that was my first literal ever introduction when I was 19 years old that food might affect how I feel. So no one ever thought of it. No one ever told me. My doctor did say keep a headache journal, but there was no mention of it could be allergies or food. So that was the first time in 19 that I realized I should change what I eat. I quickly, actually, by other chances, found CrossFit and then paleo and started eating that way. And I actually ate pretty strict paleo. Fully strict paleo for multiple years and pretty strict for like 8 years before I found the GAPS diet. And I found it managed my symptoms unless I had exposure. And then I would have a tiny bit and I'd get a migraine usually within 15 minutes. Um, I would get irrationally angry anytime I ate sugar. I just want to like punch people. And I started seeing again these more connections. I started researching, and then I had a friend who was eating Weston A. Price, and we had arguments about grains, and because paleo's nothing, right? And she's like, if God said bread was bad, like why would He make it? And so there was just this discussion, and then I learned about properly preparing grains and soak sprout fermenting and how that's different. And then she found the GAPS book and she gave it to me. So this was early mid 20s, 23-ish. And she's like, I think you should read this book. And I read it and I'm like, this is me. This is the picture of all that's been going on in my life. And so again, looking back, I didn't have good absorption. I had bad abnormal flora. I was a sugarholic. I'd go to and buy a baguette for lunch all the time. That was a normal lunch for me. It's just a baguette. I ate, my blood sugar would drop. I would feel panicked if I left the house without a snack because I knew if my blood sugar dropped, I'd have a migraine within half an hour if I didn't fix it. Um, I also, back in the day, um, I also would only eat certain kinds of candy like Fun Dip and Smarties because no other candy was sweet enough for me. So some people will like talk to me and they're like, "But you don't understand, like you like healthy food." I'm like, I did not used to like healthy food. This was absolutely something like my candida, and I now understand my candida was there because I was feeding it, but it was also there because of the metals that my body was not able to get rid of. And I still am working on that metal load, but it's a lot better. So I found out about GAPS. I read that book the last semester of grad school when I was about to graduate to be a family nurse practitioner. I started GAPS the next spring in February. Within a couple weeks, I knew is what I wanted to do. And I actually got trained later that spring as a GAPS practitioner in 2013. Um, I also graduated. And so when I ended up opening my own practice with just a little bit of experience with a nurse practitioner, very part-time for 6 months, I mostly just opened my own practice with GAPS being my primary thing that I wanted to do and bring to primary care. So I'm really thankful for the timing of all of that. It was really, really a big blessing. But there you go. there's my story.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can hone into different details, but that gives a good summary of that journey.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate all the detail, honestly, and going back to when you were so young, because I think something that we do a lot as GAPS practitioners is talk about GAPS kids, right? And like a lot of us, even if we didn't actually come to it until we were an adult because our chronic health issues got much, much worse as we got older, we can then start to like follow the breadcrumbs, so to speak, and
Yep.
like trace that all the way back to like, oh, actually, there were things going on. I can relate so much to your story of like, I had a weird full body rash when I was like a couple weeks old, and like I started refusing milk in the bottle when I was a few months old, and like, all of these little things that like are just kind of like, oh, it's just some kids do that, that
Right.
just happens is kind of what people often think, but like no, it's a sign of things to come later. So I appreciate you connecting the dots. I'm sure a lot of people will relate to your story. And I think I also just wanted to ask your opinion. I mean, I have obviously my thoughts, but just for people who might be wondering about the fact that you went paleo and that really suppressed your symptoms, like you became much healthier and more
Absolutely.
functional, but you kind of realized that maybe it was a little more of a band-aid where
Yeah.
gaps ended up doing much deeper healing. Can you speak to why you believe that is, or kind of the difference between doing a
Mhm.
paleo or AIP kind of diet and the GAPS diet?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I'm glad I have that experience because I feel like I did it for 8 years. It's not like I tried it and then tried GAPS and GAPS one. Um, Paleo absolutely was helpful and I'm so thankful. It cleaned up. So the thing that I see, let me back up. When I went through intro and then I learned about intro and started having patients, I was shocked at how fast I went through intro. But then I thought back and went, I had 8 years of cleansing with paleo where I was not eating any processed food. When I say like I did it not perfectly, it was I would sometimes have some, almond butter cookie or something. Like it was like I didn't go to McDonald's. I didn't go to Subway. Like I didn't do things that were standard American. So I've been not standard American for a really long time. But there were two things that happened. It cleaned everything up. And there was actually a year, probably after, like a year after I started paleo, for another year, I was not depressed. It's the first time in my life I've ever not been depressed. It was so lovely. I loved life. I enjoyed doing things. Like it was so great. And then it started creeping back. Um, because I went dairy free, which was good, I also cut out all animal fat, basically. Because I wasn't doing butter, I actually reacted to butter and ghee even the first time I tried it on GAPS. It took me months of healing on GAPS before I could even do ghee. So my body was like, no, we're done with dairy. And now it's great. I can drink raw milk. I don't, but I can like eat ice cream from raw milk and things like that. So my body is like fully healed. Paleo did not do that. I actually became more sensitive and I actually started increasing sensitivities to certain foods. So I didn't do awesome with corn, but I never really reacted to corn. I started reacting to corn. If I had popcorn or something, I would get a migraine or a stomach ache really quickly. I started having much more intense sugar symptoms. Anytime I got sugar, I would be very rageful. Homicidal is what I told people. Like, because they try to pressure you to eat sugar. And I'm like, sugar makes me homicidal. They're like, never mind. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. So I started being extra sensitive. Now, part of that was a problem, and part of it was not. Part of it I now recognize as my body was clean, and so anything I did, my body could clearly tell me that was not okay. But I was getting more reactive and I was adding things that were new that I used to not react to. And I was like, I have friends who do this. I don't want to. So when my friend gave me the GAPS book, I was ready for something new because I was starting to see problems already. The other thing is paleo, and depending on what camp of paleo you are, some are very low fat. And I accidentally cut out fat. I'm not afraid of fat. My family's not afraid of fat, but I didn't have any access. I'd never heard of tallow or lard. I had a roommate who didn't eat pork, so I didn't even eat bacon. Like it was nothing. And I became vitamin A deficient, I think, and I started having worsening neurological symptoms. So that last semester, yes, I was at school, at grad school. It was really hard. My brain was getting tired, but I started getting dementia symptoms. I was word searching, worse than my grandma, who died of dementia 6 months later. I couldn't remember. I would stop mid-sentence multiple times a day and ask people what I was saying because I couldn't even recall. Like I had no clue where I was at, and I had to like ask them what was I talking about. So it was getting really bad. My memory, my problem solving started getting problematic, and then I started getting worse migraines, some eye symptoms. So those are all vitamin A deficiency. I went vitamin A deficient because I was eating lean protein with not on purpose, right? It's just what I was told to do with paleo. I was eating lean protein with no vitamin A to help my body assimilate the protein. So then when your liver runs out of stored A, you can't actually use protein properly and it starts depleting from the rest of your body. So that definitely happened. Um, so there's some really helpful things. Paleo helped me to clean up, to make me go through gaps way faster than I would have had to. And it's more normal to society to eat paleo than gaps. So again, that was helpful. And that's why I'm so big on people practicing gaps, because I understand the importance of not going too fast and no time is wasted. That paleo time was not wasted. It made my gaps healing time stronger. But then when I switched to gaps, I remember within 5 days, I wrote, I now understand why people want to be alive in my journal. I had this like upbringing of hope of like my body was like we can do this, like we want to be here now, which was again probably one of the first times in my life I'd ever felt that in that like physical strong way. And I knew it was healing. I could feel it was healing. I was dead exhausted. I could hardly walk to the mailbox. I was so tired all the time. I could work like I did it, but I had no extra energy. I was doing CrossFit until about a year before that, and I could like barely walk to the mailbox. I remember getting on my bike and I went half a block and I was like, I turned around. Like I can't, I can't go very much further. So that didn't last super long, but my body was putting so much effort into healing. I was so tired, and I could tell it was different. I could tell immediately that it was a different feel. So for me, paleo is cleansing. I love Whole30 for that reason, because people feel like what it feels like to not eat sugar. They like learn their body all of a sudden, and it's doable. It's 30 days. And most people can get there in 30 days to feel very different than that they were feeling. But Whole30 is not going to heal you. And GAPS, I feel like, is really the most efficient diet. So that's kind of how I view those as it's helpful. If it's what you can do, great. Like it's better than standard American. Um, but let's go
Yeah.
for healing if you need healing. So
Yeah,
I kind of see
yeah.
them as
No, I see it so the same way. Thank you for that. I think that it's a great stepping stone diet. And for some people, maybe who have more mild issues, it might be
it
enough,
may be
you
enough.
know?
Absolutely.
But I had the same experience as you, not quite as drawn out, but I did paleo for I think like a full year before I went on to intro gaps, but part of that was because I got such strong detox symptoms just from going paleo.
Yes.
You know, even still eating starch, right? Even still even eating a little bit of grains, like I was still eating like some rice and things like that. And even with that, I had such intense detox symptoms that it was like I'm actually really glad
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't jump straight to gaps because I see those people too who are like, oh my God, I tried gaps and like it was the worst thing I ever did.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
whew, well, that's such a big jump. That was probably really hard on your body. And so it's a
Yeah.
beautiful way to like ease in, you know, and then eventually I cut out the grains, but I was still eating things like yams. You know, I really just paced myself into it. And I think I also had this experience where I actually healed pretty quickly on gaps because my body was like so primed after all that initial cleansing.
Yeah. 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 I did intro in like 3 months or something. And
Yeah,
I was like,
that's me
what?
too. Yeah, that's about what I did. And a
And
lot of
again, that sounds
women,
long maybe to people who are watching this, but that's so, for the level of symptoms that I have, that's so fast to go through intro. And I did redo intro once or twice, and had like a new layer of healing. Like a year later, I did intro again, but again, it was, 6 weeks long, something like that. But Yeah, I should not have healed that fast, but I did so much pre-work. And that's why I tell people, like, if you're practicing gaps, is my phrase for you start bringing meat stock, you start bringing ferments, you start doing milk kefir, you start getting your detox baths, Epsom salt baths every day. And all of those things are healing at a pace that's usually way more manageable and needed to be much less and much more manageable. Um, so yeah, that's super helpful. Yeah, and then great. Now we've already prepped. It's like getting all your stuff done, and then you pack to go on vacation, but you already did all the separate things. You just put it together, and it's really fast. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting what you were saying about the vitamin A too. I also really resonate with having
Mhm.
been very vitamin A deficient, I think. And part of it was as my cravings became more probably accurate, as the more I was healing, I started basically only wanting to eat yogurt, raw liver, and eggs. There
Wow,
was like a whole
yeah.
summer, like after I went through intro gaps and I had expanded my diet more and stuff, but I was like, I was like craving raw liver and like
Mhm.
craving dairy.
Yeah.
And I like look back on that now, like I do not feel that way about liver anymore. Now I'm kind of like, liver,
Yeah, I'll have it sometime.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But like at the time, I like, and it wasn't even that I was craving the flavor or anything. Like objectively,
Yeah,
let's be real, it doesn't taste that
yeah.
great.
Your
But I
body
was just like,
desires it.
body, I know. I was just like, I need this. And so I really think that this is a huge hidden epidemic deficiency, And like, obviously, in the Western world, it's not so bad that people are going blind, right? But it's this like low grade, vitamin A depletion, maybe more is a better way to put it, that is still causing a lot of serious health issues with the brain, with the nervous system, with the immune system. Do you see that a lot in your clients as well?
Absolutely. And thankfully, I was doing eggs. As you said, eggs. I'm like, oh yeah, I still did 2 eggs a day. That's what I was raised on and still did. But yeah, it is huge. And a lot of people, can you hear my dog barking?
No,
Good. Zoom is so good at suppressing noise.
it is. It's
A
amazing.
lot of people are not getting enough A. And there's actually a cultural fear of A, which is a problem. Like if you even in the natural health world, actually especially, people do. There's a new recommendation. Again, it happens every few years, I feel like, where they're like, pregnant women should not take cod liver oil. It's so dangerous. I'm like, the baby literally needs vitamin A for so many important developments. A palate, so cleft lip and palate is most closely tied to a vitamin A deficiency. Like, how can you tell me it's dangerous to have vitamin A if you have a deficiency, you get cleft palates and blindness. Like, the disconnect is huge. So, if you're a pregnant woman and someone told you to not take cod liver oil, do take cod liver oil, natural cod liver oil, like green pastures, but it's so important. I do see it. So much is neurological. Also, what's interesting is the lungs need vitamin A, the adrenals need vitamin A, and your nervous system. So brain, eyes, nerves need vitamin A. So what is the thing that we have? We are all stressed, nervous system overwhelm, and breathing in toxins all the time. So like our vitamin A need is super, super high. Um, and yeah, so I see a lot of people with it. I see a lot of people who feel better. And that idea of like craving versus desire, I start teaching people, it's not that your taste buds, and for kids, I say, your taste buds should share. Like sometimes your body wants it, but your taste buds don't like it, but you have to tell your taste buds, like, we need to share. The body wants something that's not your favorite. And that can work for some kids. Some it's still too hard, but it can work for some. But for adults, it's good to say too, because sometimes we need to share. And that desire, I have people like, it can taste good. And sometimes craving is taste, but sometimes it's a different, like, desire. And so I'll have people smell supplements sometimes or like liver and go, okay, does your body desire that? Does it sound good to your body? Not does it smell good? Because it can be a very different thing.
And you're so good with some of this like visual assessment of the body in terms of some of these deficiencies that can be hard to test for accurately. Like I know even with all that vitamin A refeeding, I still notice like ridges in my nails that I'm probably still a bit depleted even with all that, And so I know that's a really common one is like seeing ridges in your nails for vitamin A. Are there any other
Yeah. Yeah,
markers?
fatty acid. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other physical symptoms that I see, but I definitely see like fat malabsorption issues.
Yeah.
So visible veins above the eyelids show the gallbladder is stressed or needs cleansing, like beet kvass. Beets are really helpful for that. Maybe some castor oil gently, right? Um, and then on your liver. What else do I see? Yeah, the ridges, because I can also see that with vitamin F deficiency, which is another fat soluble vitamin or fatty acid. So again, I just like that's fatty acid problems. Visible veins, like kids who have very translucent skin and visible veins here, that's a fatty acid deficiency. So either they're not eating enough fat or they're not emulsifying and absorbing that fat properly. And then we'd kind of explore why. Those are the main things. And then anytime someone has an eye issue, I'm always thinking that at least part of it is a vitamin A. It can be reflexes and lots of other things, but vitamin A is going to help for sure. And vitamin A should not be taken solo, right? It's with D. That's why cod liver oil and eggs are so good. And even if you're eating beef liver consistently, the recommendation is to eat pork lard, right? Because pork lard is high in vitamin D, grass-fed, and then vitamin A for the liver. So anytime you're consistently eating a large amount of liver, if you're just having a spoonful here and there and you're eating grass-fed butter, you're probably fine, right? But if you are eating a good portion of beef liver every day, you want to also do some lard with
Interesting.
close to it so that you can keep the balance.
Very interesting.
But yeah, A is huge. And then I also go, if your adrenals are stressed out, you probably have an A deficiency to some degree. Any nervous system issues, tingling in the hands and feet, maybe even falling asleep easily. That can be vitamin C deficiency with the blood vessels also, but I think that A and B could be what's deficient if that's happening. So anytime I'm working, again, nervous system symptoms, brain, nerves, lungs, or adrenal, I'm gonna say you need more A.
Yeah. Which is most of the people who come to us, really.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much everyone. Well, I want to get back to you've mentioned a couple things around things you see in kids or things you say to kids, and I know that's been a big population that you've worked with and really what the GAPS diet was originally designed for, right? Is
Right.
actually intervening early with kids. And so I know that there's a lot of parents out there that maybe see some of these early signs that we're talking about in their kids, but maybe feel really intimidated on
Mhm.
getting started with gaps or just feel like that's never going to fly with their kids. And so I know you
Yeah.
work with these families a lot, and so I'm wondering if you can give some of your top tips on
Yeah,
how to implement this on the family level.
definitely. I love talking about that. It depends on where your kids are starting from. So if we need gaps now and they are already so in deep, if you will, right? And that definition may be hard as a parent because either you are seeing things that just are normal for them, so you're like, oh yeah, they do this and this and this. So you may actually underassess their need, or you may overassess their need because you're seeing it and you're worrying about it and you're feeling responsible that you're doing a bad job as a parent, right? And so you may see, oh my goodness, they need gaps yesterday, or they were going to, and your head's spinning with bad things. So the big thing to look at is it doesn't matter where they're at. We start with what we can and we move forward. What are the main pillars of GAPS? Meat stock, animal fat, and fermented foods. And then organ meats are definitely in there, but that's smaller amounts and can be harder for people to get in. So we bring them in, but they're like a sidecar. Okay, so they have these three pillars of GAPS. Okay, which one's easiest for you to start with? Fermented foods, meat stock, or animal fat. Most people, it's fat. Their kids love butter. If I say, your kid should eat as much fat as they want, as much butter as they want, they love butter. Perfect. Cut up cubes of butter, have a bowl in the fridge that they can eat anytime they want to. If the people tell me I will only do one thing, usually people don't, but right, if someone's going to only do one thing from my recommendations, increase animal fat. It will fix more than anything. Now, ferments are your way out, right? Good probiotic is your way out of things, but fat helps largely on that scale. Your body's more fed. You will stop craving as much sugar because your body's satisfied. So you'll stop eating sugar to feed your bad flora, even just naturally by increasing animal fat. You will start getting nutrition you were missing. Some of that nutrition will go to your brain and adrenal, so you now have energy and desire. So for me, animal fat is the first easiest thing in. And it's very rare that kids have an issue with that. Sometimes we have to do beet kvass to get them be able to digest the fat, but usually we can just start with fat right away. Meat stock can be trickier, can be easier. Do your kids love soups and stews? Just start making more of those. Have them drink a mug. It can be easier because, just drink 1 or 2 ounces with one meal and they get a sticker on their star chart and that's it, right? You just start with a little bit and you start letting their body crave. Dr. Natasha talks about this a lot. When the body's getting healing foods, it will crave that food even despite what the taste buds are telling it to do, right? The overriding of the body going, that's good, will start overriding the flora. And that is a huge principle that we use as practitioners for kids that won't eat anything is you start hiding it, even hiding it, right? You make their pancakes, but you use meat stock instead of water, like literal just pancakes, right? Their body will start getting the nutrition and start craving that food, even though the kids are maybe not even aware that they're eating it. So a lot of kids don't need that extreme of a back, but sometimes they do, right? And we just start putting the healing food in because the body will start asking for it, kind of despite the flora, right? Despite the flora. And then fermented foods. So the thing for fermented foods or any of these foods is just like when you are introducing foods to a new baby, they don't love it the first time. Of course they don't. Sometimes they do, right? But not every food they're going to love the first time they do it. And they say it takes 20 introductions per food often for that food to be accepted. What's cool is it doesn't have to be eating. So you could give your baby or your child a bowl of meat stock for them to play in. And maybe they'll suck on it a little bit and be curious, but don't put pressure on it. No pressure. Just give them this new thing. Start putting sauerkraut on their tray when you give them food or on their plate. You don't have to mention it. They don't have to eat it. You just put it there. They're seeing it. They're going to be curious. They're going to touch it. Um, and then I love doing what I call science experiments, especially with older kids, like 4 and up. But you can do it with younger. Let's not focus on eating a food. We're going to focus on the process. So let's do this with ferments because it has the most steps. You go with your kids to the store, the farmer's market, whatever. They pick the vegetables they want for their ferment. This is so cool. So they get to pick them out. Then we come home. We do a brine recipe. So a brine recipe is 2 tablespoons of salt to 2 cups, 2 quarts of water. So you make a quart mason jar, fill it with filtered water, put in 2 tablespoons of salt, and you dissolve that salt in here. Here's my brine. You cut up your vegetables. They get to pick, they get to make jars of vegetables. And then after they fill them, you just pour the brine into the top and make as many brines as you need. So now you've made it. They get to do every single step of that. They even got to put them in themselves and pick the order and which ones went in. And then you label them. This is Susie's, this is Carl's, this is whatever. Then you watch them every day. What colors? Oh, that was more pink last week. That was more yellow and now it's getting more pale. That now the water's getting purple because we put a beet in it, right? Like you're watching the ferment and you write down stuff every day of what happened. When that ferment is ready in a week or two, what do you think they want to do? Open it and try it, right? Like they're not going to fight you nearly as much as you saying like, here's a new weird food for you to try. Let me put it on your plate and you've never seen it before. Versus they made it and they're involved in the process and they're really curious. And then we just introduce the concepts of what we need to do. To make our bodies healthy, we need to eat ferments every day. But let's find out which ferment you love. Okay, we're going to try. Do you like Susie's best? Do you like Carl's best? Do you like mine best? And do you like the pieces better? Okay, let's try a carrot today. Let's try broccoli tomorrow. Let's try an onion the next day, whatever it is that you put in. Let's do the juice. Do you like juices or pieces better, right? So it's not about the food, it's about the everything else. So much easier to get them to do. So you can do this with meat stock, obviously not as many steps. That's why I like to say that. You can do it with meat stock. You can do it with animal fat. Okay, let's put our fingers in butter and lard and tallow and let's see what they're different. Oh, that one needs salt, right? Like just be involved involve them in the process. Give them clipboards. Kids love, like think about being a kid. If your mom or teacher gave you a clipboard that's yours, like you would do anything with that clipboard, right? So there's so many ways to really make this be involved in a different process. So that's my main fun favorite way to talk about it.
Oh my gosh, I love those ideas so much. And first of all, I love how you're emphasizing just like do what you can, right? Think about what the pillars of the diet are and just bring it in as works for your kids and works for your family. Even doing a little bit of something is better than nothing. And it snowballs, right? Like the more you do it, the more it'll be normalized. But then just like the attitude that
Yeah,
you're taking with it. You know, I think so many parents are so stressed out
yeah,
about their kids' health, understandably, right? A lot of times you're not finding answers, you know, and the specialists aren't helping, and you don't know what to do, and you see your kids suffering, and so it becomes this really like big, heavy, intense thing.
mhm,
But then, of course, anytime kids are gonna feel that like heavy energy,
yeah,
they're going to be repelled by it. Like
right,
automatically it becomes something scary or something that
right.
they're averse to. And so having this really like playful energy around it, I think is such a beautiful idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I love that. And that's my mom loves science and loves the scientific process. And I just grew up like everything
Yeah.
was not fully this, but that would be something that would happen if it needed to, right? I learned it from what she did, and we just explored our world in that way. Why do you think the ants are crawling this way, right? How much can they carry, right? Just like exploring. And creativity, right, is huge, but this is also curiosity. And curiosity is one of the most powerful tools we have. I have friends who do MNRI, which is a neuro reflex integration thing. So your primitive or primary reflex is like the startle reflex, the sucking reflex, the grasp reflex that babies have. We are supposed to do those reflexes and then integrate them into our nervous system. We don't always do that. We don't, I have my childhood, think back at my beginning, chronic stress, chronic pain, probably, colic, which is gut pain, right? Like I did not integrate some of my reflexes because I was not in a calm, stable environment. So a lot of us don't have fully integrated reflexes. We have a lot that are, and we're fine and we compensate. But MNRI and other things work with that. When things are too hard, so when your reflex isn't integrated, it's very difficult to do something, especially if you're stripping away your compensation and doing it the right way. Like it's not in quotes, it is the right way. It's the most efficient way for your body. Um, it's really easy to not want to do that. When they're working with kids who are resisting that, they use Pavlov's reflex, which is curiosity reflex. Hey, yeah, you don't want to roll this way, but look at this really cool toy, right? Like we do this all the time. This is how we get kids to roll over, like, come to mommy's as they're walking, right? Like all of our lives, we've been drawn to do something new or different because of curiosity. And I love, it makes sense to say curiosity is so big, but I love the depth of knowing that it's a literal built-in reflex, and it is one of our primary, arguably one of the most important reflexes that we have as humans, because curiosity is what got us forward. That's what made us walk. That's what made us roll. That's what made us look up, right? Like look over to a sound. That's a reflex, ATNR, looking towards a sound, and babies, turn their hand and their head at the same time. Like that is because of Pavlov. That's because of the curiosity reflex. So when you have kids that are stuck, make it curious, make it fun, put it under a bowl and hide it, and then they get to pick which bowl it is, right? Like don't think I need to figure out how to cook this food deliciously. Think much more broad about like how do I make them curious? How do I make them involved? How do I make this exciting and not about the food? And in it, you bring up again, just like with the ferments. We need to have ferments every day to be healthy. We need to eat meat stock right now, but do you like meat stock cold? How much salt should we put in it? What if we put an egg yolk in it? What if we put it in this bowl or this cup? Does it taste different to you? What if we eat it outside on the porch, right? Like you don't bring it about the food and you tell them these are things we need to do, but let's figure out what your favorite way to do that is. And you take the focus away from the hard thing that they're fighting against or scared about, especially if you're stressed, just like Jen said, exactly. If you're stressed, they will feel the stress. They're in hindbrain says this is poison, stay away, right? And then they won't do anything that you're wanting them to do because of the stress. But you take it to like, okay, we have meat stock. How do you want it today? Which cup do you want to pick? Do you want it warm or cold? Do you want to go outside? Do you want to sit under the table and let's have a fort, right? Like you just make it about other things. Eventually, we need to sit at the table for meals, right? But this is for curiosity and is exploring. They won't eat the carrot. All right, let's play carrot swords with our carrot sticks. Especially for kids who like won't even touch food. It's not food, it's a play toy. right? Like, let's bring to the level where it's safe for them, where they're not feeling forced and letting them explore just like a baby would, very, very safely and slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is really bringing me to another topic I know you've been exploring a lot more recently, and my understanding is that, you've noticed that with some families or with some kids, or maybe they're not making as much progress on gaps as you would have thought they would, you're noticing that there's this emotional component
Mhm.
that is not getting addressed. And
Mhm.
so maybe actually this would be a good segue into sharing a little bit about
Yeah,
how you started noticing that and then some of the tools that you're using for that side of things now.
yeah, definitely. In two ways, I mentioned, right, emotional was part of my story, and I'll go there also, but just this idea, this is part of how and why my ears perk up when I hear things like, oh, that's our curiosity reflex, because that's how we get out of the stuck place. And I think the first thing I learned was really how important mindset is, especially for younger children. Um, and younger is 7 and below. The psyche doesn't fully separate from the mom until age 7. So there's different degrees of separation. That's part of what 2-year-olds are, right? It's becoming more common knowledge. Babies don't know they're separate from their mom, right? Like they're together. And then eventually, like at 2, they start going, oh, you might want that, but I want something else. And that's a lot of that self-exploration and the tantrums in quotation marks, right? Is really like them exploring like the boundaries of what does it mean to be my own person. And that continues fully. The separation is around age 7. It's when you lose your first baby teeth. And so until then, you're not fully separated from your child. And they are going to be in tune, literally in tune with what you're feeling, and have to deal with it. It's not that they're responding like you are, like baby newborns do more, but they are going to be very in tune. Our kids are always in tune with us. We're still in tune with our parents as adults, right? You know your mom's facial expressions and all of that. But especially below 7. If a parent is stressed, it tells them primitively, this is poison, this is dangerous, stay away from it. And kids don't have the logic to say, mom's stressed about the fact that her friend called about some drama story, and it's nothing to do with the food she's serving, but the child sees mom is stressed, this food must be poison, right? That's the very simplistic brain. As we get older, we start being able to reason around that, but I would argue that we never fully get away from the way our hindbrain operates, right? We're always going to be somewhat responsive to the environment around us, and a stressful environment is not conducive to healing and eating and digesting. So I tell moms, write on your fridge, be positive, be encouraged, whatever, kind of some kind of mindset. I've had better words in the past. Some kind of mindset, something of like, this is going to be great. This food will be one of their favorites. This food heals their body. I'm really big on not just saying the mantra that you're supposed to, but something that you can actually believe that is true and is true. So if you can't go, this will be my child's favorite food, then say, this food will help heal my child's body. Like, find something positive that you can believe and you can say. Because I think that the disconnect, and this is back to emotional work, the disconnect in the parts of us that some will want to say that, and some of parts of us will say that's wrong, and they will put up a defensiveness against saying something they know is untrue. And I can't guarantee that's your child's favorite food. Neither can you, right? But it is true that it is going to be good for their body. It is true that they will like this more after they've had it more, right? It is true that someday dinner time won't feel like such a battle, right? Though, so whatever is true that it is true objectively, and you can say it with full, what's the word that I want?
Like
Cohesiveness.
authenticity, like, or
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Resonation, like you can
Yep.
fully resonate with all of that you're saying, and it pushes you, right? But you can say, like, no, I do believe that's true. It's scary to believe it's true. It's hard to believe it's true, but I can accept that. And then you can change those as you experience more. You can change those and kind of increase the intensity of that. So that's kind of where I started learning about this piece and with some of my own journey, which I'll talk about in a second, but just that, like, it's okay for you to be stressed about this, but in the moment that you're presenting food, find something that you can say is true. That like we need, especially as moms, you need something that you can just do in a second. You can't just sit and do emotional work or have a counseling session before every time you feed your kids. It's 3 times a day, right? Minimum that you're going to feed your kids. So to have something that can just pull you into self is what IFS calls it, internal family systems calls it, pulls you into self to say, okay, I can believe this thing. I can be in this mindset and present this food very excited for to see with curiosity what my child is going to do, right? So the curiosity comes here as well. I'm curious what they're going to respond. Will it be different today? Will it be the same? Will it be slightly different? Will they touch it? Will they eat a piece, right? So just bring curiosity to the same thing. It's a scary hard thing you're doing to present a food that's been thrown in your face over and over. Can you bring curiosity to get through that scary hard thing? So I love curiosity. I love curiosity. It's so deep. And in my own emotional work, as I've done, I mentioned the IFS. Internal family systems or parts work is what it's called. Is a major thing that I came to. I use some other modalities, TPM, which is transformational prayer ministry, relational needs, which is understanding that we have needs and we're supposed to have needs like appreciation and safety and respect and things like that. And I kind of combine them. I do work with people sometimes, but I did the work for myself first with other people helping me and still helping me. I did not start doing emotional work until a few years after I started GAPS, and I feel like that was needed. I don't think I could have been strong enough just physically. It is physically exhausting to process emotions because emotions are physical. There's a vibrational frequency to them that changes your body just as really as when you have a virus or a bacterial infection. It will change the frequency of your body, your cells, and what they vibrate as. So will being sad or happy or angry or discouraged or apathetic or whatever. And so the frequency going through your body and what it does, we don't think it's silly to be tired after being sick. Why would you think it's silly to be tired after doing some processing? And I did not grow up with that. So I understand why you think it's silly. But now I'm like, no, like, how did we get there as a culture? Because it didn't used to be. If you read old books, people knew that grieving or loss or processing after a stressful event took energy, and no one faulted anyone for taking time, just like if you had been sick. We somehow lost that. I don't know where. So that idea of curiosity actually comes into IFS. It's probably the first place I learned that word and then kind of deepened it with the reflex understanding. Is in self, one of the main things they say, the 8 C's of self, you can look those up. It's calmness, curiosity, courage, compassion, and some others, 4 more. But that curiosity is what gets me, again, just right out of the mindset. I'm looking at symptoms that I'm having or other people are having. I'm like, huh, I wonder why. Instead of, I'm so mad. Will you fix things? Get yourself together. Will you stop? And it can be anything. Stop smoking cigarettes. Don't you know they're bad? Yes, they do. Why can't they? Be curious. Bring them to a place of curiosity. Why doesn't your kid like that food? Bring to a place of curiosity and talk with them about it. Talk to yourself about it. Why do I get so upset? It's really easy to find an answer to start down getting answers. Ask yourself, why do I get stressed when it's dinner time? What am I afraid is going to happen? You have an answer right now to that question. Now that you have an answer, you can start working towards it. Our brain is very good at that. We are amazing at problem solving. We've just never found the problem. You thought it was your kid not eating. Yes, that's another thing. Why don't they eat? You're right. You can be curious about that. But why do I get upset? Why do I get stressed? I feel like I'm a failure as a mom. I feel like it's never going to get better. I feel like, my partner gave me 6 months for this to work, or we have to move on to something else, and I'm afraid we won't get there, right? Whatever it is, there's going to be something that comes to mind that you know now suddenly why, and now you can start working on helping it. So I love curiosity. I feel like there's so much depth to learn, and you need more context eventually. But for that, like in the moment, if I can be curious, I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to be blaming others. I'm not going to be defensive even. Um, if I get defensive, I go, huh, I wonder why I'm defensive. Now, do I have emotions? Yes. Do I do this perfectly? No. But I can get myself out of anything pretty quickly most of the time because I'm curious about it's good. That's a real response. Why did I get upset right there? Why did I feel stressed after that email and I'm now scrolling on, YouTube? Like what happened with that instead of, I'm on YouTube again. I'm such a loser because I just can't even have enough self-control. Nope. Why did I just get on YouTube? What am I feeling? And then you can decide, YouTube calms me down. If I'm on here for 5 minutes, I'm going to feel better. Great. It's a great tool. Good job. Oh, I'm feeling scared about this thing, but if I tell my husband about it, I will feel better. Great, go do that, right? Like sometimes we stay with the thing, sometimes we try to find a better solution than what we're automatically doing. But the first stage is knowing, curiosity. You have to be curious first. So, and so powerful.
Yeah.
And then teaching your kids to be curious, like my mom taught me, right? Like be curious because then that's the feel for your house, right? It's not a hypocritical thing of you're always asking them, sorry, let me riff on this and then I'll let you, I know I'm talking for a while,
Oh
but
no,
um
that's great.
with I've worked with some people that the parents can't go to the curiosity and it's good to see the contrast, right? So, we've talked about gaps and that their behavior is a gaps behavior, and it's very clear to me that this is a gap symptom and that they are not a naughty kid that's trying to be disrespectful, right? And the parents just for their own things, and they couldn't be curious about their own mental health things, which happens. That we have protective barriers about going too deep. Like I have a lot of compassion for that because it can be really hard. But I'm seeing that kid grow and thrive in other environments, like with another, family member or a different, environment where they don't have the same symptoms because there's not a curiosity. I went really deep there. One of the other questions or things that I think of that comes with curiosity, the first thing is everything's for a logical reason, right? That's a foundational assumption. They're doing this for a reason, and that reason makes sense. It may not be the best making sense, but to their knowledge and experience, it's the best response that they can come up with. We all know that scrolling YouTube is not the best thing to do in a forever way. However, if it calms you down in 5 minutes as opposed to it taking 3 days before you feel calm, it makes sense to do that. And it's not wrong to do that, right? But we also have to go, let's get to the root of the problem. That's what we're doing with gaps too, right? So let's get to the root of the problem. But at the beginning, at the surface, why aren't they eating that food? How can I make food fun? What's stressful about meal times for me and for them, right? And so we know where we're going, but it's okay that we have a journey to get there. We're kind of bad at that as a culture too. It's okay to have a journey to get there. So back to that idea of curiosity. I'm working with kids where that there's the stress of curiosity is not as accepted in the household. And I'm asking this kid was a little older. Okay, why did you feel that way? Do you remember when that happened? Did you feel it in your body somewhere? Did you notice like what happened before the whatever explosion happened? And I kept hitting a block. And I'm like, yeah, when parents grab on and can be curious with their kids, the next call that I have, that kid's like ready for it. But it feels hypocritical. It feels scary to them if you just go, hey, let's ask curious questions. Let's ask curious questions. But you never do it for yourself. And you're just badgering them, right? And you say, oh, we're supposed to be detectives, but you're only ever like, eyeballing them, like that's not going to feel good or safe to them. So bring the culture of curiosity and do it for things that are not so stressful. Let's be curious about the ants. Let's be curious about like how fast can a drop of water run down the wall? Like literally anything that's happening, bring that curiosity in. And then when you ask about, oh, I'm curious why you were feeling upset all of a sudden because we were being happy. Can you figure out, like, do you remember what your body was feeling? Do you think maybe it was the cupcake that you ate at your friend's birthday party, right? Like you're bringing this in, but it's not just about just the stressful things, it's a culture. Yeah.
That's so interesting that you're bringing or emphasizing curiosity so much because my dad's a scientist, and so I also had this very like
Yes.
curiosity filled upbringing where I was very encouraged to like do my own research and like be a critical thinker and be curious about stuff. And um it's interesting to think about how that might have played into my own healing journey or just even ability to keep asking the why questions. Because part of how I found gaps was like I was sitting in my doctor's office. asking them why, until they were clearly very annoyed with me, right? And didn't have any more
Yep.
answers. But like I wasn't satisfied. I had to keep asking why, and I also use parts work a lot in my practice. I was originally trained as a therapist, and one thing that I learned in my training that has stuck with me this whole time is this idea of if you're seeing a behavior or a symptom and it seems incomprehensible, like you can't fit it in a framework of understanding, it doesn't actually mean that that symptom or behavior is incomprehensible. It means you're missing
Yep.
key pieces of context,
Yep.
right? That if you actually had the whole context,
Mhm.
oh, suddenly that symptom or behavior issue would completely make sense. And maybe not like you're saying in a perfectly like linear,
Right.
rational way, but you
Right.
would be able to see the sense.
There is a logical pattern, and especially when we're working with kids, they misinterpret things all the time, right? And so it's logical to their interpretation, even if it's not true,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter if it's true because it's logical. Truth matters, but not in this context, right?
Yes.
Truth does really matter. It's good to bring that in, but that's not what's going on with this. They have a reason that they're doing it. And when you understand the reason, it's very it's easy eventually when you fully feel understood, it's really easy to accept a different option. But when you don't feel understood, you're going to hold on to that and explain your position. And we do that as parents, right? If I'm sure you as an adult have had times where you felt heard all the way, and like how much easier it is to that friend that always hears you and then you get advice from them all the time. But then that other friend that never hears you and tries to offer advice all the time that you never listen to. And you think, oh, am I just bad at taking advice? No, you just need to have someone step into your world so that they can give advice from your world perspective instead of from their world perspective. And so we just do that with our kids also. And having language words is really helpful. It's the one thing I have in my brain of like I miss saying, is like teaching your kids, not just sad, bad, mad, and glad, right? We need to teach them the difference between frustration and irritation. We need to help them understand excited and happy and nervous and fearful and right. So just as emotions happen, give them more emotion words, get some faces to practice with, like print off faces from the internet or get a book of emotions to really learn that because then they can feel more understood because they are having language that's more accurately describing what's happening. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I feel like this is a really powerful place to wrap up, just, really emphasizing this important of emotions, of feeling understood, of cultivating curiosity, of like the attitude you're approaching all this other healing work from, because I know both for parents and adults who are doing gaps for themselves. I mean, I mostly work with adults, and gosh, my clients often feel so stressed and such a need to do things perfectly and for this to be the thing that works, like there's just so much intensity that's wrapped up in the process of doing something like gaps, and just the way you're describing how to work with kids, I'm also seeing how this can be
Same for
applied
us.
for, yeah, for adults too.
Yep.
It's like because curiosity is such an antidote to that fight or flight state, right? If you're curious, like all of that just like relaxes, just like in your
Yes,
body automatically. And so if you can view
absolutely.
this as like, how will this affect my body? I wonder what this will change. I wonder what it won't change, and just
Yeah.
let it be a process that's unfolding.
Right. Yeah. Is today the day that liver's going to taste desirable to me? Like, it's so great. Yeah, that curiosity. I love that I work with kids because I'm so sneaky when I talk to adults. I teach the exact same way. When I talk to kids, I teach, this way, and I give lots of metaphors, and I give lots of metaphors. But if they're childish metaphors, with adults, I just say, here's the way that I teach the kids. And then I just say literally the exact same thing. I just add one sentence at the beginning. Here's the way I describe it to the kids, and then I just
Yeah.
tell them the exact way that I just taught a kid. So, because we need that, right? And we need to feel anyway, it's just great. But yeah, it's all that applies. Why don't you like eating, right? Why are you avoiding eating? Like, I need to be curious. Why have I not drinking beet kvass for the last month because I know I'm supposed to? So instead of being shameful or beating yourself up about that, be curious. What is it about that? Oh, well, when I drink beet kvass, I get a headache. Okay, maybe we should drink less beet kvass. Maybe we should drink it with more water. Maybe you should drink it at night instead of in the morning for a little bit right? Like as soon as you ask that question and you're curious, you're going to get information and then that gets you moving forward. So not only does it get you out of fight or flight, absolutely, which is so cool. You're frozen and then you're like, huh. But also it's going to give you information to move forward when when you are feeling or are stuck. So, yeah.
Well, this was so lovely. I got so much insight. There's so many gems I'm going to take away from this conversation. Do you want to plug anything, your clinic, your website, any trainings or anything else that you're doing?
Yeah, so my website is bewellclinic.net. So BEWELL clinic.net. And we have different things. I have a GAPS intro course. That's really for people who want more than the book but aren't working with a practitioner or are, and it kind of has the basics. But that's on the website. You can find that on the website. We work with people nutritionally, but obviously Jen does too, and she's lovely. So keep working with her. We do have primary care. So if you're in Colorado, in the Denver, Fort Collins area, you can bring your kids to us for primary care, which we we don't make everyone do GAPS to do primary care, but we do use some of the GAPS principles like meat, stock, and ferments and organs and mineral salt and all that kind of stuff. And then people, if they need it or are ready for it, we will transition them into working with GAPS. So yeah, doing that. I have a YouTube channel also with lots of teaching topics. So Be Well Clinic again on YouTube. If people want to look, I do have an emotional work something emotional support for your kids or something like that as a live I recorded years ago that kind of explains a little more just specifically about here's tools to take home. That's more than we talked about today, but talk about cholesterol and supporting the liver and the lungs, and there's a lot of different topics for that, like very health specific topics. So anyway, those are,
Yeah, wealth of info on there. Thank
and
you.
I wrote a book. It's on the website. You can go on the website.
Yes.
Get that. Yeah. So
Great.
yeah. Thanks for
Okay.
having me. This
Well,
was
thank
so
you.
fun. So
Yes.
lovely.
Great.